Well, we've reached a milestone episode on the Twin Cities Real Estate Pros podcast, episode number 10. We appreciate you joining us. My name is Ron Johnson, licensed real estate agent with RE/MAX Advantage Plus. As always, David Nelson is here, licensed real estate agent with RE/MAX Advantage Plus. The man over there is Tim O'Keefe. He is a insurance agent, not a licensed real estate agent, but a licensed insurance agent with Liberty Mutual. We're going to talk to Tim about homeowners insurance and some other things. But first, David, we want to get into what we always like to talk about a lot on this show is the benefit of pre-listing, and you've got a real-life story of how pre-listing helped.
Real life story. Yes, it's if you watched our podcast last week, which would be episode 9, I talked about a property at 17598 Kettering Trail. We just pre-listed it last week. Snapped some photos with my cell phone, put it on Zillow, and that was on probably Wednesday. By Friday, we had a contact from a buyer that wanted to look at it. Brought their agent through the house Saturday morning because the sellers allowed them to come through, knowing that the house wasn't ready yet, the house wasn't fully finished, but the buyers really wanted the property. Saturday morning they looked at it. Saturday afternoon we had an offer.
Wow.
And I can't disclose the terms, but everyone's going to be happy. It was a kind of unexpected because my sellers are still kind of like, oh, we weren't going to list for 3 more weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 3 weeks. But they're happy because now they can kind of stop a lot of the things that we're going to do and now proceed with, we're starting to look at homes for sale for them now.
Right, and they also don't have to worry about, as we talked about, making sure your home looks pristine at every moment in the day. You don't have to worry about a last minute showing. You've got to run out the door. Kids, pets, those kind of things. So it just makes, selling your house is a hassle, right?
It is.
While you're going through the process. Granted, at the end of the day, it's worth it. But now because you have it sold, you don't have to worry about people coming through the house, and life gets a lot easier.
Well, and these sellers had already met with my stagers. They'd gone through, given them a bunch of to-dos and tasks to take care of. So they'd finished a lot of the painting and stuff like that. But of course, they hadn't, completely done their work. They had 3 more weeks yet. And so for these sellers, they're actually quite happy because now they can stop worrying about decluttering, depersonalizing, and now they can actually just start packing. And there's something to be said about having actually a time frame, a deadline. So now hey, we don't have to worry about selling a house anymore. It's pretty much sold. Now we can proceed with our next step of looking for the house, writing an offer, and going on to that. Because even when we were doing the paperwork, they were talking about, oh man, if we don't get an offer by this summer, we're going to be gone for a week in June. Is this going to be a problem? So they were stressing about June. Well, if it all pans out, they'll be in a new house by June. Yeah. So I'm so sorry you have to leave.
Yeah, and a natural reaction, I think, from a lot of sellers is, oh, well, if somebody wanted it right away, that means there's 10 other people that want it too, and they're going to offer more money, which there's no guarantee of that, and particularly in your situation, right? Because we're hearing there are 5 or 6 buyers per house under 400, but you're over 400, but there's a much smaller buyer pool.
And not only that is you're competing, especially in Lakeville, at the 400 plus, is new construction. And even though this home, the quality of this home is you can't compare it to new construction. It's well built, it's got a beautiful wooded lot, et cetera, but is when buyers go out and they go look at a bunch of brand new model homes, they have this perceived notion of everything's got to be stainless steel, granite, brushed nickel, et cetera. Then they come into the homes that are pre-existing. And even though the home is better quality, better lots, everything has a deck, window coverings, they still maybe don't like it as much because of new construction. So this home was priced at $470. To get an offer, first showing, first people through, it's phenomenal. And again, I want to express the fact that just because you get an offer of the first people doesn't mean there's 10 other people waiting. And the rule of thumb is your first offer that comes in is definitely going to probably be your best. So, and the next one comes in, it might be lower, and then if you get a next one, and then before you know it, you're accepted an offer less than what you would have had right away in the beginning.
Right, and if you let it sit a little bit, there's another mortgage payment you have to make, and things like that. So once you do all the math, taking that first offer could be the best thing, assuming it is a solid offer, which generally a pre-list buyer, especially if their agent prepares them, they'll say, look, we're going in this house before anybody has to see it. We can't go in there trying to lowball because nobody else has seen it, so we have to be serious from the buyer standpoint.
Well, and also, too, it added the negotiation side of my sellers because the offer was really good. It wasn't exactly perfect, but it was very darn close. And we're like, well, it's 3 weeks out to list. I mean, if you want the place, and the agent knew that coming in, is like, hey, if we're going to write an offer, my buyers want it. We're not going to lowball it because you're just going to scoff, and it's wasting everybody's time.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and it's a benefit for the buyers to come in before anyone else, because then they can get it and on their terms potentially. Benefit for the sellers because they don't have to deal with the showings, the constant. I mean, your first week of your house hitting the market, the sellers are out of their home almost all day long because you've got showings, open houses. It's quite chaotic.
Yeah, we're going to bring in Tim O'Keefe here from Liberty Mutual in just a second, but I want to talk about a situation I had with a pre-list from a buyer standpoint. So I have a buyer looking in South Minneapolis. I found a house for him that was pre-listed, and then so we went and looked at it. It was listed at $219. It was a really nice home in the Corcoran area, just south of Lake Street. We went and saw it. We were the first ones in the door, and then apparently after that there were several other showings, which I totally believe because it was priced really well and the house was really nice. And the agent, who's not with us, but that did a really nice job of marketing it as a pre-list for his clients. So we put an offer in on Saturday night. Sunday, you get a notice from the listing agent. They have multiple offers and let us know by 10 a.m. Monday what you want to do. So we went and increased our offer. And I know what our offer was above list price from a net standpoint. There was some seller paid closing costs, but the seller would have netted more than what they asked for. And they also had a specific closing date they wanted, and we did that. And they had some inspection item things they wanted taken care of. We were willing to do that. So we did all the things they threw out that they wanted. We're going to give them more money, and we didn't get it. So that just shows how pre-list buyers are very serious, and the benefit to the seller of pre-listing, because now they can get on with the rest of their lives and buy the next house or whatever. So, and that kind of, I guess, is a little microcosm of what's going on in the market right now and how buyers are racing out there to see houses.
Yeah, and again, too, I always like to put the caveat, it's not every price range.
Right.
You know, particularly Lakeville out of South Metro, homes between $200 and $350, it is really hard to keep them on the market if it's priced right, in good condition, and, you know, there's nothing crazy bad about it. But, you know, the luxury homes, they do get offers, but they do sit along, you know, there's just fewer buyers. So, but again, if you're in that hot price point, there's a huge benefit for sellers to get your home, you know, talk to the agent, preferably us, because we know what we're doing, you know, and you know, so we can start this pre-list process, because again, is you may be able to net what you're asking for, possibly more in your case, before it hits the market, and you don't have to deal with getting your kids out of the house, putting the pets away, you know, and all that good stuff. So there's just a huge benefit for this pre-listing, and buyers are very smart now because they're going to Zillow, and this is where we put our pre-listings on. Not every agent can do that, but we can. And it's on Zillow as a coming soon. So now buyers are knowing that, hey, if we want to get a property before somebody else does, they know where to look. You know, as well as we market on Facebook and everything else. But Zillow, the #1 real estate website out there, that's what they're going for, and garnishing a lot of attention.
Yeah, and then when you buy your house, you need to make sure that you protect it, right? Because there's some responsibilities to owning a home.
Particularly if you get a loan, you kind of have to.
Yeah, if you want to. So yeah, to get a loan, you need homeowners insurance, and to take care of your house, you need homeowners insurance. That's why we have Tim O'Keefe here from Liberty Mutual. And full disclosure, Tim is my personal real estate agent, or my personal.
What?
Well, it's going the other way.
Yeah. It's bizarro world.
Oh, that's fine, I think. My personal insurance agent. So my homeowners insurance I have through Tim, and some other policies as well. So thank you for being our 10th guest. So you'll get a prize as soon as David comes up with whatever that prize is.
It is Rockstar.
Okay, so you get a sip of the Rockstar. But in all seriousness,
the same one.
That's right. Let's talk about some of the homeowner policies, and for the first step. So I sit down with my mortgage lender and get my pre-approval. I go find David, and David shows me a house, and I get the house. Now I need homeowners insurance. So where do we start with you?
First off, fantastic transition. And thanks for having me on here. Big number 10. That's a lot of pressure.
That's a big deal.
So the first step, obviously, just to give generally as an insurance agent, especially locally, you even mentioned buyers are a lot more informed, and sometimes that's could be better or worse in non-insurance. I think we see that even more so than you do as realtors, where there are a lot of different types of campaigns out there for different companies, where it could be you're spending too much and it doesn't go any further than that, and you should be looking for the cheapest deal. What I work very hard to do is educate all of my clients and everyone I come across as much as I can that you're going to be spending money on insurance anyways. You want it to be there when something happens, and you want to spend the right dollars. So you have a lot more options, and the access is a lot better now, I'd say, than it was 20 years ago. But also people are cutting some corners in different companies, and this is a great opportunity. So thank you to get more of a message out on some of those things that are missed when you know, why is this policy magically $500 cheaper than another policy, which people run into a lot of times, and they don't know enough to know the difference there between those policies. So to your question, the first step, they find that home, then I step in and work. There are some requirements through the loan, through the mortgage company, on what kind of deductibles they need and sometimes the amount of coverage. But what we're looking to do is figure out what the right coverage is for that property. If there's a claim, if there's a fire, what do they need in place to make sure their home's rebuilt and they get back whole? That's what we're trying to do. So we start that process with them, and that works with the inspection, getting details on the home, square footage, all of that. I walk through everything with them and making sure we describe and underwrite the house appropriately and make sure they have the right coverage. That's the first step right there.
And I don't know if you run into this much or you do, David, but some people, I think, confuse the value of the home versus the insurance amount.
Right.
Those two numbers really have nothing to do with each other, right? Because you could have the same, because the cost of the wood is the same, whether it's in Lakeville or if it's in Woodbury or
Right.
wherever, but the values may be different because they're different areas. So you just care about how much it costs to build your house back up when it falls down.
Yeah,
Which may or may not correlate with the actual value of the home.
fantastic point. Just think about how much that's fluctuated, the actual the market value of the home in the last 10 years. The cost to actually rebuild that home hasn't changed nearly that much, and so that's something that's comes up early and often as far as when you're looking at your dwelling coverage, which is the amount of coverage to rebuild the home as it is. People are wondering, you know, I paid an extra $100,000, I should have that much coverage. Well, you're in a great neighborhood, a booming neighborhood, there's really competitive, you need to pay that much to get in there, versus to actually rebuild your house is going to cost that much. And it can certainly go the other direction as well, where to rebuild your home is going to cost more than you paid for it, for sure. And so that's why you really need to take the time to dig in on what's in the property, what do you want rebuilt, what style, those type of things. If it's an older home, do you want to rebuild it as if it was a 1920 home with different types of styles and woodwork inside and things like that, which is going to need a lot more coverage than a brand new build that's extremely efficient and modern construction materials, things like that. So that's something we work pretty extensively on to make sure.
So if you did like a 1920s rebuild, you could save money on insulation because
Right.
they put in paper,
Yeah, absolutely.
horsehair. I mean, think of the money you could save. Single pane windows, good lord.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
I mean, why wouldn't you want to rebuild it back 1920s?
And at your price point you're talking about, if you're up over 400,000 and it's an older home, like, say in, you know, the Summit area in St. Paul, you know, that fluctuation between rebuilding it with modern materials and rebuilding it as is can be $200,000, and you have that option through your insurance. But if you only break it down, you know, why is this one $1,000 cheaper? Well, it's because you're going to get a different home than what you had before the fire or whatever it might be at that point.
And whether it's your company or any company, the one thing you want is a company that's going to pay your claim, right?
Absolutely.
So if you get some of those discount rates, is that guy going to show up with a check when you need it?
Yeah, exactly. In the pricing, you can sometimes see as well, and this comes up with a roof most often, especially in Minnesota and Wisconsin, as far as, you know, some companies have had to now push back because there are so many claims because of wind and hail damage in the area, where if they weren't priced high enough to begin with, aren't taking in enough premium, something's got to give somewhere. And what that means as a customer is when you have a claim, you may not be able to recoup the same amount of money that you would otherwise with a company that was priced more efficiently, effectively up front, and actually planning on paying out claims and doing their job, those type of things.
I think a lot of people too, when they say I have homeowners insurance, it's just kind of like, I know you may talk about umbrella, but they think it's just one big term, like, oh, it's homeowners insurance.
Right.
Like, well, no, there's different levels, different tiers, different coverages.
Absolutely.
So a lot of, that's where you come in, I'm sure, it's just the education aspect.
Right.
Because whereas we know homes, we know how to sell homes and help people buy homes. Then buyers, especially first-time buyers, are coming through. They have a lot of questions on the sale process. So it's nice to have someone like you that's going to break down, educate them and show them what's the value of a good homeowners insurance policy. Because God forbid it burns down or something happens, they're not going to be devastated.
And also, it's about going that one step further, because there's a lot of terminology in the insurance world that is not actually consistent across the board for every company. So how you're presented a policy or how you're presented it online or however it might be may sound a certain way, and you assume it's a certain type of coverage. But if you don't actually get past and dig into what's covered and what's not, you might find out that it's completely different than what you assumed. And the most obvious example is full coverage. Everyone says, I want full coverage. My lender needs full coverage, full coverage, full coverage. That doesn't actually mean anything specific in insurance. Yeah. It's just a reassuring term that a lot of times is thrown out there. Yeah. Do I have coverage for this? Well, you have full coverage. That doesn't mean anything for anybody. So it's about one step further with that, that's 90% of my job when I work with clients, is just like, this is what happens when you actually have a claim, What's your full coverage do for you?
Yeah, I think that's important to know what's not covered just as well as what is covered. Because I think one thing that comes up a lot, especially here in Minnesota or any places with basements or wet basements, and whether you have a sump pump and what's covered, and is your stuff covered, is your structure covered, and sometimes none of it's covered if your basement gets flooded due to rain. So is that something that you find yourself, whether it's the sump pump rider or whatever you call it, or people calling up and say, hey, my basement flooded, and they think they're covered, but they're actually not?
Some quick background without going too far into insurance. All with the Minnesota Insurance Commissioner, the very basic homeowners policy is the same for every company, and then the company will put additional coverage or make slight changes that they clear with the insurance commissioner to these policies. And one of those is the water backup coverage, where on every single company, unless you have that endorsement, there are certain types of water damage that's not going to be covered. In Minnesota, that's huge, because basements actually aren't a thing nationwide. That's a Midwestern big time. And so if you're calling a national company, they might not even know how important water backup coverage is, because it doesn't affect everyone in every region the same way. And so, to your point, water backup is coverage from if water backs up from sewers or drains that might be outside of your property, or there's something technically in the city line that causes damage on your property. That's not covered unless you have the endorsement on there that says we'll cover this water damage in your basement. And as far as personal property goes, this is an important clarifying point too. And this always with insurance, because some schmuck in the past had a little bit of water in their basement and dumped all their property into the basement to claim everything. So now personal property is limited coverage for that based on water claims in the basement. Yeah, come on, Ron.
They wrecked it for everybody.
Yeah, they call it the Ron Johnson quota.
We got Code 6, Ron Johnson.
That's right. Code 6, or the AKA Ron Johnson.
Yeah. Exactly.
Shady.
Right. But yeah, we went to get into so many things, and you've got to run here in about 5 minutes. So we're going to have you back, because we went to get into condo policies and umbrellas and some other things. But I want to stick on just the regular homeowners. I can't say regular. There's no regular coverage.
Yeah, exactly. Full coverage.
Full coverage.
Right?
That's right. Exactly. But one thing, so you talked about the dwellings. That means building up your house. But if David's over my house one night and he gets served one too many soda pops and falls down the stairs, and he wants to sue me, or his insurance company wants to sue me, that's where the liability part of it comes into.
And there is coverage for stupidity on your. There is coverage for that.
So you're saying I'm stupid?
I'm just saying generally
you come over.
We all
yes,
know.
You are.
Yeah. We all know somebody. We all have.
Right,
that
but all in
also.
seriousness, there's a second portion of your homeowners insurance versus just the house itself.
Absolutely. And the way your policy works, the dwelling is the big number, so you'll have say 300,000, and then on most policies, a percentage of that is going to be broken off for different types of claims, right? So, say you have a pretty significant and valuable woodshed on your property. There's other structures that there's just a percentage of that dwelling amount that's covered, and so you need to make sure that if you put $70,000 into this woodshed, if you don't up that coverage, it's going to be very limited for a claim on that specific thing. And so, to your point, liability is the next biggest one, where It's coverage for those lawsuit situations on your property, the classic insurance, I tripped on your stairs and now you owe me $2 million, those type of things.
Right.
Yeah.
And you do have coverage for that, but that's almost always limited as well on your basic policy. And like you said, I'll have to come back and dive into this a little bit more, but that's why an umbrella liability policy on top makes sure that in those disaster situations where, you know, there's going to be ongoing medical claims and those type of things, that's almost always going to exhaust the amount of coverage you can have on your personal property, on your personal policy, that is, where you're only going to have 100,000, 300,000, 500,000, even that, if your porch collapses while you're having a party, that's going to be gone in a second, and then it's back on you, your insurance company. No matter who it is, they could be the greatest insurance company in the world. They hit that $500,000 mark, and they're it's back to you. We did our job.
Yeah, and it could be your best friend in the world too, and I think that's what some
Exactly.
people think. Oh, it's my friend or whatever. It's not going to happen, but it's not your friend. It's your friend's insurance company, right?
Yeah.
Because somebody's got to pay somebody. You know, your friend's not going to be. Hey, you know
Right.
what? I'll be okay with this $2 million bill.
Yeah.
Right? The insurance has to get paid at some point. So you need to have
Exactly.
that insurance, no matter the relationship with the
Right.
person.
And the best thing about an umbrella, which we can't dive into too far, is it makes sure the litigation process is not on you. So if there's a frivolous lawsuit, you know, someone just going back to the tripping on your property, where it's clearly just a frivolous lawsuit for whatever reason they're coming after you, you don't have to then go out and defend yourself and hire a lawyer and those type of things. You can call your insurance company, give your statement, and their lawyers are going to cover you up to 1.5 million, 2 million, those type of things. And that's the actual settlement. That's not the lawyer's fees. That's not included in your amount of coverage. They're going to keep fighting for you until they have to settle for more than 2 million, and then it's back on you.
No
So,
problems, yeah. But
yeah,
at least you want to be set up for that, so you're not going $2 million out of your pocket. Right?
yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Well, like I said, we're going to have you back because we wanted to get into condo policies and townhome policies
Absolutely.
and some other things. But being our 10th guest, we had to celebrate off the top, so we wasted some time on it.
Shaped. Yeah.
But yeah, and that's a whole other thing with
Exactly.
the HO6 is the only thing that I know. I don't even know what that means, but I hear people talk about it. But
Yeah.
different condo policies and townhome policies. So
Well, we'll
definitely
call it a
have to have you
two-part
back.
series.
It'll be there. You go.
For
Stay tuned.
like a
yeah,
mini-
for
it's a mini
podcast
series.
number 10,
Yeah,
it's a two-part series.
It's a modern day Roots.
There you go,
Yeah.
mini series. So we'll have you back. But no, we do appreciate you joining us. And
Thanks
if somebody
for
wants to get a
having me.
hold of you, how can they find you?
I'm online, so Tim O'Keefe, and then my office number is 651-578-0221, and I work locally in the Twin Cities area, and then we also partner a lot, and so if you know Ron or Dave, we'll make sure you get to me.
Okay, we'll have your information up on our website as well
Absolutely.
at Twin Cities Real Estate Pros.
My smiling face. Yeah.
All right, we
Of
appreciate you
course.
joining us, and we're going to get out of here a little quickly today because Tim's got to get going. Unless you've got some, we don't need him to talk.
No,
I could slowly
you could
fade
just
out.
fade
if
out,
it's,
have
Fade
a
to
shot
black.
and get going, yeah. But no, we appreciate you joining us. Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys.
All right,
Thank
so
you. I appreciate it.
You ever run into any kind of situation where it's time to close and the buyer's like, "What do you mean I need homeowners insurance?"
I have, but it wasn't because of our doing. It was a buyer that went to, I'm not going to say any names, but an online lender
Okay.
that just kind of, they just push loans through. They don't really care who you are. So, of course, it was about a week before. They're like, oh, my dad said that we have to get a homeowner's insurance. I'm like, yeah, I sent you an email. You have to do this stuff. Like, oh, well, my lender didn't say anything. I'm like, well, that's kind of the reason why I recommended you actually have somebody that kind of monitors and keeps track of you. But luckily, you know, it isn't a long process. You know, they're able to, you know, communicate with their family insurance agent. That day they got the policy, so it wasn't a big deal. But it's definitely, you know, you got to be aware of what's going on.
Yeah, and there's a line from Chris Rock, and I can't say it, but he said insurance should be called in case stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because that's when you need it, right? In case stuff. Nobody needs insurance until you need it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's like same thing with your health insurance. We all these bellyache. We have to pay for car insurance, homeowner insurance, health insurance. But when you do need it, it's definitely nice. And kind of going back to what Tim was saying earlier about like when you were talking about the water, we've got 11,000 lakes in Minnesota.
One of them's going to make its way.
One of it's going to see. And I was in Grand Forks, North Dakota, when they had the big '97 flood.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what water we were putting up sandbag dikes. Like, oh, that's going to stop the water. Well, it stopped at water coming at you, but then it goes in the ground, it goes underneath it. So it's water's going to find the least resistance, and it may be your house. So again, you definitely, if you're looking at your insurance, you want to talk to your agent to verify that you are covered, because we do have a high water table. We do get rain. Look what's happening in Houston right now. So you got to be aware of what you're covered and what you're not covered for. So if something does happen, it's kind of your own fault that you chose not to.
Yeah, and whether it's Tim or Liberty Mutual, any of the other companies,
yes,
if you're going to make the investment to buy a nice, beautiful house and do the landscaping and get the big TV and all those other things, you want to make sure you're spending a couple extra bucks to make sure it's protected, because in the end, that's really what's going to help you out.
Well, it's really funny. You look at where do people save money at? They're trying to pinch pennies on things that are really important, like their homeowners insurance. Like, why would you skimp on something that is as valuable as your house, but you'll go out and get the newest iPhone and spend
with the insurance probably.
With the insurance. Yeah, like, oh, well, you know me, I have to go ice fishing or drop my phone. I got to make sure I'm covered. And they'll spend extra money on that, but it's just a frivolous phone. But you're looking at your home that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. You've got grandma's fancy curio cabinet thing that you want to protect all that stuff, but they skimp on it. So you really have to figure out, don't overspend, of course, but you definitely want to make sure that you are being protected and do it wisely.
Yeah, and make sure you have an agent that will sit down, just like your mortgage lender, your insurance guy, somebody will sit down with you and explain.
Correct.
What you are getting, what you're not getting, just as important.
And going back just to, if you're going to like a huge online company, and you may save a few dollars, but you alluded to earlier, when you want to get that coverage, or if you want to get that loan, excuse me, that agent or agency may not be that responsive and not really care about you, because they're not there to build relationships. Whereas Tim and other insurance agents and lenders that are locally, they want your business for life, and they're going to treat you at a different level than these puppy mill lenders and insurance agents. They want to get you, and then they don't care.
Right.
If you leave them, that's fine. Look at somebody else.
Yeah,
with their fancy commercials.
Right. And I know both of us, we will recommend insurance people to our clients, and if you want to go with those people, that's fine, because they're people that we trust and work for reputable companies. And if you want to go out on your own, that's fine as well. So just make sure you've got that coverage in place, otherwise you're not going to be able to buy that house. So,
yeah,
FYI. Yeah, that's a big deal. All right, so big thanks to Tim O'Keefe from Liberty Mutual for joining us. We'll definitely have to have him back to talk about some other homeowners insurance policies and the umbrella as well. You can check out our show on our website, TwinCitiesRealEstatePros.com. We're also on YouTube at ImperialHomeTeam.tv. So we appreciate you listening. We appreciate you watching, and we'll be back next time. 10 shows we made it through, David. Nice job.
You too. and a little bit of snippet, for all our viewers, stay tuned. Later on this week, we're going to be filming some commercials, and not too elaborate what's going on, but they're going to be a lot of fun commercials. So, of course, we'll be promoting them as well. Yep. But some good stuff happening down the pipeline. And also trying to get live on Facebook as well. So plenty of ways to catch us. And the best place initially will be TwinCitiesRealEstatePros.com. You can learn about both of us, and you can learn about the guests that we have and how to follow our show. So we appreciate you joining us on the Twin Cities Real Estate Pros podcast. Again, my name is Ron Johnson, licensed real estate agent with RE/MAX Advantage Plus. David, licensed real estate agent with RE/MAX Advantage Plus as well. So thanks for joining us for the Twin Cities Real Estate Pros podcast. We'll catch you next time.